Hi there, I'm Matthew Lester from the Rhodes Business School. 25 February 2015 is National Budget Speech Day, and there is a lot of speculation in the press about what's going to happen following announcements of tax increases back in 2014. But let's have a look at it and put it all in perspective. At the outset, I must say that I am a member of the Davis Tax Committee. The stuff that you're going to see that follows is already in the public domain and already being discussed. There are no secrets in it, so you're not going to get any special tips. Why is there all this doom and gloom? Let's have a look at it and see what the crucial issues are. Probably the biggest cause of concern is change. We went from having Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan for 5 years. For 10 years before that, he was head of SARS. We thought our country was in safe hands, and it was somewhat controversial when Nene was appointed Minister of Finance in May last year. And people look at this and say, was there an ulterior agenda? We've got to have a look at that and say, let's take all the speculation out of it and see what the crucial issues are. For my money, the crucial issue simply goes back to 2009. The leading economists of the world said, yes, we've had a financial crisis, but there will be a quick recovery from the financial crisis. Reinhardt and Rogoff from America published their papers back in January 2009, and they said GDP rates would recover within 2 to 3 years, and everybody expected that to happen. Well, it didn't. And that's probably the biggest problem and the mistake made by Pravin Gordhan. He was waiting for growth rates to recover, and they never did. So now we get to October 2014, and we get the ominous announcement from Nene. And he says, the choice we face in considering these proposals is a difficult one, but we believe that this course can no longer be postponed. What's it all about? It's all about national debt trajectories. Back in 2009, world economists said countries will borrow following the financial crisis by as much as an additional 200%. So by 2012, we were predicting that the national debt trajectory would ease off by 2015. That didn't happen, and then we changed the budget again in 2013. By 2014, National Treasury has had to face the difficult decision that the national debt trajectory at present, in terms of the current strategy, is never ending. That can't be sustained. The sovereign debt rating agencies are simply going to downgrade the rand to nothing and junk status if that continues. So Nene says we have to have new proposals that will reduce national debt by 30 billion rand per year and thereby level off the national debt trajectory. That 30 billion rand will be split equally between government reducing national expenditure by 15 billion and the taxpayer increasing their tax burden by 15 billion. The growth rates for the current year were forecast at 2.5% back in February 2014. They're going to come nowhere near that. Currently, they're sitting at 1.4% and with no prospect of a big recovery. Even the international predictions for growth internationally are sitting at a low 3.5% per the IMF. Nobody's expecting miracles this year. So the strategy of waiting for growth rates to recover and for tax rates to increase is just not going to do it. In South African tax terms, we have a position that we really have 3 big taxes. We have in red personal income tax, then in blue we have corporate income tax collections, and in light blue VAT. And we can see that the big one has always been PIT, but back in 2008 corporates were making a far bigger proportional contribution than they are today. In real terms, corporate income taxes have not increased since 2009, and consequently this has put a lot of additional stress on personal income tax collections. Now, your third tax is VAT in light blue. All the other taxes together are in grey. They don't even amount to anywhere near any one of the big 3. So we can't go and beat up smokers and drinkers to solve the nation's problems. We've either got to find a new tax or we've got to do something with one of the big 3. And that in itself is not that easy, because the personal income tax burden has been steadily increasing over the last few years. Corporates don't have very much to offer, and it would be a sensational development if we were now to increase the corporate tax rate above 28% or fiddle with the newly implemented dividend tax. And then again, if one turns to VAT, we have a huge political considerations that have to be taken into account. And if we simply increase the VAT rate by 2%, as some would suggest, we're facing a national strike. So it's a very, very difficult decision. In the last month, there have been some pundits out there who've been saying, hold it, aren't we going a little bit too fast, because the world has changed since October 2014. And it's all reflected in one graph, the downward swing in oil prices. Our oil prices are now at about the level that they were in 2009. If one says, okay, the rand has weakened against the dollar since 2009, take that into account, yes, but if we take the weakening of the rand and everything else into consideration, the oil price has effectively, in rand term, dropped from 1,200 rand a barrel this time last year down to below 600 rands a barrel at times. And consequently, we have seen a decline in the petrol price from a high price of 14 rand last year down to currently 10 rand a litre or thereabouts in February 2015. And we must be saying to ourselves, that must have some sort of an impact. And we start doing little calculations, like saying, well, if the national fuel levy is 47 billion rand a year, one can equate that in a simple calculation down to South Africa consuming about 14 billion litres of fuel per annum. And if one looks at the savings on that, even at 3 rand a litre, it all translates into magnificent additional taxes. Some say 12 million, some say, well, conservatively estimated 7.5 billion. So wouldn't the solution to be in the budget to say, well, hold on, we can put a little bit of extra tax on fuel and wait for the benefit of the fuel price increase to come to our help and be our savior during 2015. And back in January, that trend looked fantastic. We had people like Ross Perot at Davos saying this is going to go down to 40 rand a barrel, $40 a barrel. We've had all sorts of commentators saying that this is a long-term decline in the oil price. So those are the calculations, and we are hoping that that will lead to greater consumer confidence. We're hoping that that will lead to greater VAT collections, sin tax collections, and all of that will save the day. We are also hoping that if one looks at the balance of payments current account and the fact that a third of South Africa's foreign exchange is spent on importing fuel, we're hoping that that's going to help as well. But again, hold on, maybe not. If one looks at trends in February, we have seen the oil price recovering from around $47 a barrel to currently being over $60 a barrel. So if we take that and we convert it back into rands, we find that we have already lost 150 rand a barrel. We're back at 700, and the trend is increasing. So the universal proposition that we can simply stiff it all to the oil price doesn't seem to be holding true. So overall conclusions facing budget day. Yes, a lot has changed since the very negative position that was painted in October 2014 at the medium-term policy framework speech. Well, yes, a lot has changed, but a lot of other things have also come into account. We can't only bank on a lower oil price. We are also a resources-driven economy, and some of the resources companies are obviously staggering from the decline in commodity prices, and their tax checks to SARS this year will be a lot lower than they were. So we can't stiff it all to oil. The good news, let's hope, is that SARS will make its budget of 1 trillion rand for 2014-15 tax year. So we shouldn't be starting off on the back foot. But we still have to find that additional 15 billion. Maybe some of the additional revenue streams are already there, but certainly not an additional 15 billion rand. And we can't stiff it all on the oil price. So hopefully all the horror talk that you're going to hear about in the press over the next few days is going to be just that, horror talk. They haven't got Oscar Pistorius to be a lead story this February, so they've got to make up something as they go along. And maybe we will survive the afternoon of 25 February without too much draconian stuff. But it's going to be a tough afternoon. We can't gamble it all on oil. So, join me on 25 February. I'll be doing podcasts and articles like this to see what actually happens. I'm Matthew Lester at the Rhodes Business School. Thank you for your attention.